Hello knitting friends, welcome back to Jack Knits. Today we're going to learn how to do a knit increase stitch called the make one right and the make one left. Now the make one right is usually done on the right side of your fabric and the make one left is done on the left. And the reason for that is because your make one increase to the right will have a right leaning increase. So all the stitches, the increase stitches will kind of lean towards the right, as with the make one left, the increase stitches will lean towards the left. I will show you how to do each of those stitches and also explain how to keep them separate and keep track of how you do each one, because I do have a slightly different execution for each stitch to produce that right and left leaning increase. So let's learn how to do that together. Okay, so to produce the make one right increase, I'm just going to knit here to the point where I am going to do my make one right by my stitch marker here. Okay, so here's a point where I am going to do my make one right increase. Now you see this little ladder strand of yarn between these two stitches, this strand right here? This is what the strand is we're going to use for our increase stitch. I'm going to pick up that strand and stick it on my left needle. But how you put it on your needle is very important. For the make one right increase, I'm going to put it on my needle this way. So the extra loop around my needle is actually leaning towards the right. Okay? I'm not going to put it on my needle this way. I am putting it on this way, so it is leaning towards the right. Okay, so make one right, extra loop is leaning towards the right. Now I'm going to knit that stitch, but instead of knitting it through this big loop here, and let me do that and I'll show you what happens. When I do it that way, it will create this big hole and gap in my knitting, and I do not want that. I want a nice smooth knitting with no holes in it, big holes that is. So let's not do it that way. Let's instead of through here, I'm going to knit it through this hole right here. Now you'll see that it's very hard to grab that hole, so don't frustrate yourself, don't fight it. What I like to do is give it a little help with my right needle, pick it up so I have a hole to work with there, and then stick it through. Okay, so sometimes it needs a little help with your right hand needle, and then knit it and take it off. And now you have increased one stitch and made a make one right. We'll show that again, but let's now go over to the other side of my knitting and do a make one left. So similar to the make one right, the make one left, I'm going to also pick up the strand of knitting, but now I am going to put it on my needle the opposite way that I did the make one right, like that. Okay, so now that knitting strand is leaning towards the left, so everything again is to the left. Make one left, leans to the left. And now I'm going to knit that stitch, but I'm not going to knit it in this big hole right here to create that big hole in my knitting. I'm going to instead knit it through the back loop, right through there, and knit that stitch through the back loop. Okay, that's the make one left. All right, let me knit back to this spot again, and we're going to look at these one more time. I'll be there in just a moment. Okay, here I am again at that space where I want to do another make one right increase. So let's look at this one more time. I'm going to pick up that strand in the middle, that ladder strand, put it on my needle so that over yarn is leaning towards the right. Now I'm going to knit with my knitting needle leaning towards the right. So to do that, let's give it a little help, give it a gap there, stick it in that way. So my right hand needle is also leaning towards the right. Knit that stitch, and that is your make one right. So everything about a make one right is leaning towards the right. That's how you can remember make one right versus make one left. The yarn over is leaning towards the right. The way you insert your needle to do the knit stitch is leaning towards the right, and it will produce a right leaning increase. So now let's do that make one left one more time. So here's the spot where I want to do my make one left. Let's increase or pick up that ladder stitch there, that little strand of yarn, place it on my needle this way where it's leaning towards the left, and I also going to stick my needle into knit leaning towards the left. So through the back loop right there, knit that stitch, and that's my make one left. All right, so that's how you do the make one right and the make one left, and how to tell the difference between the two. I hope you found this helpful. If so, please don't forget to like, comment to tell me what other type of stitches you'd like to learn how to do. And also don't forget to subscribe and to receive notifications of new videos all about knitting tips and stitches and creative patterns. Thanks for watching, everyone. Happy knitting.